Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello everybody, welcome to one more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, and this week we have with us, joining us from Pune, a word that I had to learn how to pronounce, in India, is Ajit Singh. Hi Ajit, welcome to the show.
Hi Vasco, thanks for having me in the show.
It's a pleasure. So Ajit is an IT professional with 17 years of delivery experience in application development, system integration, and software testing. He served as a Scrum Master for over 3.5 years now for clients ranging from the US, UK, and Australian geographies. Ajit, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Share with us, how did you end up becoming a Scrum Master?
I become the Scrum Master by chance. I was in fact onboarded as a project manager for a new project. We came up with a project plan, phases, cycles, milestones, resource loading, typical waterfall way. And then we had a news that the client leadership for this particular line of business has been changed. And the new leaders come with the agile background and they want this project to be delivered in agile also. So overnight, I became the Scrum Master. Next day, I was converting the delivery model into agile delivery model with the help of agile COE, and then I was revising the contract terms and conditions to reflect on the agile model, and then teaching teams on agile manifesto and Scrum framework, and then kicked off my journey thereon.
Wow, that is quite the baptism of fire, if I may say so. So tell us, share with us, what were the biggest changes when you went from the waterfall-like project plan you had to a more agile delivery model? What were the biggest changes, the biggest contrasts between one way of delivering and the agile way of delivering?
Well, in waterfall, we had a long plan and we were expecting certain outcomes after a certain duration. That was, 1 month and after 2 months. And we had the testing at the third month of it. But then when we got into the agile, we had this iterative incremental model where we have to present something valuable at the end of 2 weeks, which had covered not only the design development but the testing also, kind of potentially realizable software that we can present to the customer and have his buying. So that was the biggest difference, and it takes some time for all of our teams to adjust to that model, at least two sprints, and then third sprint onwards, we kind of settled and started delivering the way it is required.
Yeah, that I'm sure that this story is quite familiar to many of our listeners, but it is also kind of a story we should look with or should look at with hope, because it is possible to go from waterfall to agile delivery model in a rather quick time frame, as long as the people are willing to do so. And I imagine because you guys were doing a client project, there was not much discussion, right?
Yeah, there was not much discussion, and it just happened overnight. And we also didn't have any agile coach. But fortunately, I was already a certified Scrum Master. I had attended a couple of trainings before. I'd been reading a lot about Scrum. So my landing at least was smooth, because I knew how the things work and how to shape the teams to work towards in the direction. And I could succeed initially for sure.
Absolutely. And it's an important part to want to change, of course, but it's also possible. It's not just that, we think sometimes that an agile transition can be a long process, but for a relatively small project, it can be quite quick.
Yeah, it could be good. It could be quite quick, and I don't see major challenge in coming from waterfall to the agile mode of delivery. We certainly do have some challenges, but then the major challenge is developing an agile mindset. Teams tend to run the sprints in small waterfall initially, because they try to open up many stories at time and then leaving some 2-3 days only for the testing. But then once we start telling them the agile practices and how they need to improve, they get tuned to the agile mode of delivery, and then gradually they develop that mindset, and thereon they go very well. So it's not that challenging for sure.
So I don't know if the story of failure you have to share with us is from that project, but definitely one of the things we want to hear from you, Ajit, is one of those stories where as a Scrum Master, you did your best, you tried, but things just didn't turn out as you expected. Share that story with us.
As a Scrum Master, we always have our share of success and failures, Vasco. And I can remember one such failure. We were developing a B2B portal for a client, and we had some APIs to be developed also, which could fetch the data from the external system. And these APIs needed some visual contracts, what we call web services description language in XML. These visuals were to be developed by a team outside the Scrum who were working in parallel with us, and we knew that they are not coming any sooner. So we went to the product owner telling him that this is the situation, and for the purpose of sprint review, we will be presenting the demo with the mock services. And at certain point of time, we will integrate the APIs and we'll give an integrated demo for his own for sprint review. And he kindly agreed. So we continued in that fashion, and when the time arrived, we needed the visuals. We came to know that they've been delayed by 1 week, and when we actually received them, we came to know that they are of poor quality because the person who was working on it was inexperienced into it, and that created a kind of chaotic situation for us, and our integration plan went for the toss. So our team had to pitch in to help this visual team to rewrite the visuals first and then do a lot of refactoring back in our code. And all this was happening when we were just 2 sprints away from a full-fledged release, and there were a lot of things to be completed. So it left me with a big learning. Somehow we could manage the things, but the mistake that I made here was that I overly relied on my team for day-to-day liaisons with the visual team for all the progress checking and troubleshooting and understanding how the code need to be adjusted.
So well, I understand this relying on the team and perhaps things didn't work out as you expected, but what were the actions that the team took that did not allow the team, of course, yourself, to understand how the situation was early enough?
Yeah, so that I was coming to it actually. I only relied on my team for everything, thinking that this is a technical thing which they need to self-organize, self-manage, and I didn't really want it to intervene. But I think as a Scrum Master, we are supposed to be on top of the things, whether it is technical, or functional, or environmental, or configurational, so that we can proactively assess all the risk and dependencies around and pitch in to remove the blockages for the team. And even if we don't want to do that, at least we ask the questions to put the team on the right directions, to highlight the gray areas, possible problem areas where they can start taking some action, they can start thinking about that.
So, but tell us, was it so that the team wasn't discussing with the designers and the visual team, or was it that they were discussing, but there was information missing, and they accepted that the deliveries would be coming very late in the sprint? Like, what was the actual problem that you saw after you discovered that you had relied too much on the team?
The problem that they focused on refactoring their code rather than assessing whether this guy is completely off track. He's not producing the quality visuals. They waited for the last minute rather than having an immediate check. Maybe they could have asked the visuals in between, and they would have reviewed it and figured out that this guy is not up to the mark. But they kept it to the last moment, and that's where things went haywire.
Yeah, I think that the biggest takeaway for me from this story is definitely the aspect of integration. And visuals may seem like a simple thing to integrate. After all, you don't need to compile them, right? It's not like they can fail at runtime. Well, but in fact, just as you illustrated with this story, the integration of static items like text or visuals, when done too late, has the exact same problems as integrating code too late. We find problems late. We are, scrambling in a hurry to integrate those elements into the product, and often end up finding problems too late, not being able to test everything, or in this case, not even getting the visuals on time.
Yeah, this happened actually because somewhere I relied on the team, and team focused on certain other aspects rather than having the intermediate check and be on top of the things there. So had been a proper check from my side, had there been a proper check from team side, we would probably assess that we probably need a replacement of that person, and we probably need to have a buy-in of time from the customer side for the full-fledged release if things were not working.
Yeah, and definitely the question for our listeners right now is, are there items in your product or project that haven't been integrated for a while and are perhaps expected quite late in the sprint or even in the delivery cycle? Be aware of those. Those are major risks for sure. Thank you for sharing the story, Ajit.
Thanks, Vasco.
Monday is about what we learn from our obstacles and our failures. But tomorrow is Team Tuesday here on the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast. We explore teams and their journeys, the habits they develop that threaten their performance, how each of our guests helped their teams evolve, and the one key lesson they learned from that experience. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.